Can't beat the repairs by Alex Schneider Incorporated. My son doing stuff at home. Anyway, Alec, thank you very much for listening and helping Brianna out. Of course, Zach, my younger son, thanks for listening. Got Brianna. Missed you for dinner, but I know you had your car repaired today, so that's cool. We got the Burbank group. We've got Kathleen, Randy, Jim, Debbie, John, and whoever else is out there that I don't see much anymore. Of course, we have Tony and Bob, my stepbrothers from RHS. And of course, we have our 50th high school reunion coming up next year. We're in the midst of planning that May 3rd, the initial discussions. And of course, we have Sam right down the street. Sam, thanks for the note this morning or this afternoon or this evening. I lose track of time. But again, thank you for being a local loyal listener right down the street, literally. And of course, last but not least, Denise, thank you very, very much for being my girlfriend and for listening. Anyway, Improv Leadership, 98.3 FM to Life. We're going to do a bunch of things today. I got like 3 books. 2 I read recently, one many years ago. We're going to start out with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. A lot of people say Covey, but it's actually Covey, Covey. He wrote it back in 1989. I probably read it, trying to think when I read it, during the at least 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. But either way, great book. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think it's a great book. If you haven't read it, it's really good. And he really talks about the average person's personal and professional habits. Specifically, he says, there's good habits and bad habits, and some habits have a little to no impact, but most of the time, people are unaware of their habits. It kind of reminds me of the book, what's it called? The Atomic Habits, which, he talks about little things that all add up. But anyway, back to 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He says, not to eliminate bad habits, but just build up the good ones. And if you have enough good habits, you'll, kind of squeeze out the bad habits. For most people, good habits need to be practiced and, of course, sharpened, which makes sense, right? I mean, many good habits have to be learned and don't come naturally. And you have to do it over and over and over again till it becomes a habit. So changing your habits, he talks about, not only changes the way you see the world around you, but the way the world sees you. And that makes sense. It's going to enlighten you, but also people will see you in a different light. So some of the things that he talks about, the lessons, 1, the book will help you take control of your life, making not just better decisions, but smarter, more strategic ones, managing and improving your relationships with family and friends, and also at work, of course, because this is kind of a work, personal, book, overcoming bad habits, of course. Again, if you have enough good habits, you'll have no room for the bad habits. Boost your productivity, find a healthy work-life balance, and last, be your happiest self. So it makes sense. 7 Habits, Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. And the number 1 is be proactive. Now, of course, that's a great habit, right? Be proactive. Don't wait for things to happen. Be proactive. Jump on things ahead of time. It's easier to let things come to you and cast off responsibility if you don't get the results you want. But the reason you need to be proactive is because you're the person who will make the most changes in your life. So in other words, don't let things change you, you change things. Being proactive does not mean grabbing life by the horns. It means focusing only on events that are within your realm of control and not worrying about the things you can't change. I mean, common sense stuff, right? You're worried about things that you do have no control over. Why is the question. So again, if you develop a habit where you do everything within your power to improve yourself and your situation, change it or change you, then you'll be able to go on to get the next 6 habits. Number 2, again, we're talking about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Begin with the end in mind. Once you decide, okay, I'm going to gain control of my life, amazing things can happen, is what he talks about. 1, you still need to make decisions strategically, but Covey suggests that the second habit you develop is to learn how to plan your goals. The habit is a method of psychological creation, and when it's mastered, it makes the physical creation of your goals much easier. Lead yourself towards your goals from the beginning, okay? Specifically, when you do this, you'll find that you can anticipate obstacles and distractions, and you're able to deal with them effectively. Begin with the end in mind. You kind of envision what you want to see. You envision what you want to accomplish. And you'll find that you'll reach your goals much faster because the planning you do takes time off the work that's required to do. Pretty simple. Anyway, It's much easier to get back on track if you have your goals in mind from the start. If you get delayed, let's say, or there's some kind of obstacles, but you think, I'm going to begin with the end in mind. What is the goal? What do I want to achieve? What is it going to look like? What, will it be? And then work toward that goal. Again, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Improv Leadership. This is Ted Schneider. We're talking about put first things first. All right, put first things first. Now, from that perspective, it means it's about prioritization. That makes sense, right? You got to prioritize. If you have priorities, and they can vary from people to people, right? Some people don't, have they have different priorities. Some people have, a lot of things they want to get done. Some things, just a few things, but it's not a bad thing because it allows you to gain new perspectives. Okay, so think about it, right? If you put first things first, well, at that point, you can develop habits and prioritize your needs to meet your goals. Pretty simple. Prioritization is not about learning how to manage your time. It's about learning how to manage yourself. Now think about that. According to Stephen Covey, prioritization is not about learning how to manage your time. It's about how to learn to manage yourself. And think about that. You manage yourself. You take control of your actions. You take control of what your focus is, your to-do list. You prioritize things. Once you've learned to effectively manage yourself, you can become an effective manager of others. And again, he talks about this as a personal thing as well as a professional thing. So number 4 is think win-win. In other words, there's no zero-sum game here, all right? When you develop habits that lead to personal victory, you've learned how to create a winning situation for yourself. But you've also developed the methods which can help you win and then follow them up with action. So in other words, use the skills that translate win into a public victory. When you're creating a winning scenario in a public setting, you call it a win-win. All right. It's the ideal situation in any public sphere. One person wins too often while others continue to lose. You'll witness the perfect breeding ground for resentment, unhappiness, and occasionally anarchy. So you want to make it win-win. How many times in our world today, take a quick sidestep, is it about the haves and have-nots, right? It's the left versus the right. I win, you lose. You win, I lose. Well, why don't we both win? So again, think win-win. Instead of approaching decision-making by trying to make the best of the situation, approach it by creating an opportunity for both sides to win. Now, what do you think about that? Again, win-win. And how many times do you hear people say win-win-win? Because like 3 people win. Anyway, of course, it's not an opportunity for both. If there is no opportunity for both sides to win, then stop the deal and restart the negotiating process. So he's trying to, I think, maybe not introduce fairness into the world of negotiations and the world in general, but what he's trying to say is, why should it always be, I'm going to develop something, I'm going to work on something, I'm going to push for legislation, I'm going to do whatever, so I win and you lose. Or you're doing something where you win and I lose. Why not make it a win-win? Number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Classic idea. Listening is a skill in any type of situation, leadership, personal relationships. When most people think about problems with communication, they think about the inability to find the correct words to convey a good message, a concise meaning. No. Learning to listen is hard because it does not seem to serve you first. In other words, what am I getting out of this? Well, okay, if you think about it, seek first to understand, what's the other person talking about? What does the other person want? What is the other person's priorities? If I understand that, then it's my turn. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. It's not about you. It should be about the other person. Understand what they want, understand what they like, what they don't like, etc. And again, learning to listen is hard because a lot of people think, well, you know what? What am I getting out of this? I'm listening, but I'm not getting anything out of it. But you are. You're learning more about the other person, what they want, what they need, about that person in general. So listening is also a habit that has to be constantly developed. And I'm not sure if the word is really constantly developed, according to the author, Stephen Covey, but to me, it's constantly focused on. You've got to pay attention. We live in a world of distractions, period, the end. We live in a world where it's so easy to kind of like drift off or look at your phone or whatever else is going on around you. So not only is it a habit, listening, that has to be constantly developed, it has to be, I think, fine-tuned and focused on, right? He talks about the value of listening is more powerful than many give it credit because it allows you to gather real data rather than perceived data. I'm listening and understanding, right? I'm understanding what they're saying, not just hearing words, fill my ears. As an example, when you're working to solve a problem, it helps immensely to know what the problem is. A common bad habit is not to listen to the problem and only offer a solution. And that's what I do for a living half the time is I'm on a call. Last week, I was telling a few people in 10 days, we spent 21 and a half hours on calls in 10 days. So almost 3 days of my 10 days, the last 2 weeks was spent on an emergency call, trying to fix something. If you don't listen to what the impact is, what is going on, what users are saying, we bring them on the call sometimes. They show us visually, share your screen, tell us what you're, show us what you're seeing and experiencing versus just telling us. Again, constant focus on what is being said, and then you can come up with some diagnosis based on what was said, what is going on. Again, a bad habit is not to listen to the problem, but offer a solution, jump to conclusions per se. Again, understand the problem first and foremost. So, only when you have affirmed the problem with the speaker, active listening, this is what I heard. Is this what you're saying? Here's what I understand. Can you offer real solutions? Well, folks, Improv Leadership, this is Ted Schneider. We're talking about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Back in 1989, wrote this book, and we just did number 5, which was seek to first understand and then be understood. Number 6 was synergize. Covey believes the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Now think about that. Encouraging positive responses to individual contributions and providing recognition for the individual is an effective habit. Springsteen talks about that as well, kind of synergy, where he says he has certain relationships. He talks about this on his Broadway. He wasn't on Broadway when he did his show on Broadway. 1 + 1 = 3. There's certain people in his lives, when you put them together, add up more than the sum of the parts. Again, it's in your best interest, he says, when you have a bigger network of effective people working on a problem. You're more likely to come up with a viable, creative solution while expending less energy. So synergy, bringing things together and making, the sum of the parts equal more than they would normally. Number 7, this is good. Sharpen the saw. Again, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The final habit encourages you to help every other habit grow and develop. To do this, you need to make sure your mental, spiritual, physical, and social self all have the time and space they need to become a regular habit that slowly becomes integrated into your character. So as an example, the example he gives in the book is pretty good. Man comes across a man cutting wood in the woods. He's sawing, and his blade is dull. So the man stops and says, if you take a few minutes to sharpen your blade, sharpen the saw, you'll be more effective. Oh, I can't. I don't have time. I got to keep moving. But it's true. If he took a step back, sharpened his saw, he would be more effective. So again, it's really self-renewal. He believes it's a habit that makes you believe everything else is possible. And to make sure you cover all your bases, he says, here's the following habits. Number 1, physical self, proper exercising and nutrition, as well as stress management. And, before we go on, probably should just take a quick station break. Always do a station break. This is 98.3 FM The Life. Improv Leadership. Ted Schneider coming to you live from our studio on Hawthorne. But I always, don't take my word for it. I never want you to take my word for it.
WRLR 98.3 FM LP, Round Lake Beach, Illinois.
Exactly. 98.3 FM The Life. Improv Leadership. We're talking about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. The 7th habit is sharpen the saw. And he talks about, if you want to be your best, there's 4 things you need to focus on. 1, your physical self, proper exercise and nutrition, as well as stress management. 2, mental self, reading, studying, and writing, as well as visualizing and planning your goals. Number 3, social self, meaning serve others, practice empathy, and work towards synergy. And lastly, your spiritual self, meditation, as well as spiritual reading and study. He says most people struggle in at least one, if not all of these areas. But here's 4 things, again, to sharpen the saw. Worry about your physical self, mental self, social self, and spiritual self. And to be honest, I think they're all the same. If you play pickleball, you get physical, you get mental, you get social, and you get spiritual. So I'm just saying, there you can hit all 4 categories if you play pickleball. Little plug for pickleball. And he did come up with a 8th habit: find your voice and inspire others to do the same. He had a follow-up on the 7 habits of highly effective people. He talks about an 8th habit that is essential for productivity and good relations and relationships. Leadership is not a necessity, but a choice. So he talked about when you're a real leader, you're making a choice to support your team and help both individuals in the team reach their full potential. So find your voice and inspire others to do the same. I took, when I saw that originally, find your voice. Who are you? What do you stand for? What's your thing? What's your specialty? What's your superpower? And inspire others to be themselves as well. So again, just some of the summary here. The 7 habits. It talks about taking action. Number 1, commit to taking action by being proactive about your life. Habit 3, choose to prioritize the actions that further your goals. 5, again, we're skipping around because it's all there. Organize. Learning to listen. First may not sound like you're taking action, but active listening is one of the most important active choices you can make. Working on your team synergy is number 6. Number 7 is all about taking action to protect yourself. Making conscious choices to care for yourself will help you make conscious choices to care for others. Think about that, right? Making conscious choices to care for yourself will help you make conscious choices to care for others. And again, organized planning. Habit 2 talks about defining your goals and your mission in life. And then when you think of a win-win scenario. So again, very good book. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Quick read. Been around since 1989. Stephen Covey. Highly recommend it. Well, folks, Improv Leadership. This is Ted Schneider on 98.3 FM The Life. WRLR coming live from our studio on Hawthorne. Let's see. The next thing I like, this book just came out last year, May 2024. Stephanie Harrison's book, quote, "Everything you know about happiness is a lie. This is a secret to getting the new happy." I read the book and I thought, old happy, new happy. And I was like, old happy, sounds like a senior who's content. Now, what she's talking about is our society's incorrect definition of happiness and the culture we've created around it and how to improve it. So she's identified old happy, and you got to get to new happy. Again, she's an expert in the science of happiness, and she founded a company called The New Happy. She has 5. I'm just going to go over the 5 key insights from her book. And, she talks about she was in her early 20s. She was in New York, had a great job, had freedom, but she was miserable. At first she ignored her emotions, and over time, she felt bad physically, and she struggled with her mental health. She felt lonely, and literally she found herself on the bedroom floor one day crying hysterically and didn't know why she was so unhappy. Well, then she had some moment of clarity, hence the book, Old versus New Happy. She said here, old happy begins with the messages we receive as children from our families, all the way through the media we consume and institutions that enforce it. It's 3 cultural forces of individualism, capitalism, and domination, which tell us that to be happy, we must perfect ourselves, do more and more, and do it all by ourselves. So again, this is what she's saying is the old happy. The devastating truth: pursuing these objectives won't make you happy. In fact, research, she says, and she's been doing this like 10 years of research and experience, it'll actually make you miserable. All right. So number 1, she talks about everything you know about happiness is a lie. Because again, it's what we've been led to believe and, how we grew up. And there's cultural forces of individualism, capitalism, and domination that really tell us, do it by yourself, be happy, and it doesn't work. So she says here, the second thing is a happier life starts with unwinding old happy. Again, according to Old Happy, she says, Americans are struggling with unprecedented levels of unhappiness, illness, burnout, and loneliness, and have no idea what's wrong or what they need to feel better again. I was talking to someone the other day, and he talked about a younger guy. I think he's only like early 40s. And he was telling me that he just can't not think about work. No, I can't remember. I mean, I still am very, I still work and I still, like what I do, and I take what I do seriously. But I was trying to tell him that, if he's so engrossed just in work, what else does he do? And he mentioned he bike rides, but he's only done like 30 miles this month, and he used to do like a couple thousand a year. So I was just telling him, look, you gotta, in my opinion, you need to do something other than work. And the more you immerse yourself in other things that you love, work will still be there, but it won't be your primary thing. So again, I think some of the things that we do, we don't realize because we're focused on it, and that's all we do. In my opinion, at least, spread things out, get involved in more things, and all of a sudden you won't be obsessed with just one thing or the other, except for pickleball, of course. And that's for Arturo, a friend of mine, Arturo, who just needles me unrelentless when it comes to pickleball. Anyway, the evidence is woman, again, Stephanie Harrison, comes up in the book. Everything You Know About Happiness is a Lie says, to truly have happy lives, we have to start by letting go of our old happy, the beliefs, and adopt new ones by undergoing these 3 shifts. Okay. And again, there's a lady, Ursula Burns, she talks about in the book. But the 3 shifts are this. Old happy taught you that you're not good enough and there's something wrong with you. Instead, start to see that you're worthy exactly as you are. Kind of the same thing that Brené Brown says in one of her books, right? You are worthy enough. Okay, you are enough. Old happy says you're not good enough and there's something wrong with you. Hence all the products that are out there to fix you and all the things that'll make you look pretty and things that make you do this and that. Old happy also taught you to prove how good you are, you must achieve a certain set of external goals and succeed. Instead, focus on expressing yourself and growing as a person in whatever way feels authentic to you. You're not defined by your successes or your failures. So that's the interesting part. Old happy, she says, taught you that you have to prove how good you are and you have to achieve a certain set of external goals and succeed. But instead, focus on expressing yourself and growing as a person. Why not, right? And the third thing she says, old happy taught you have to do everything by yourself. Right? You're a self-made millionaire. You gotta, no, you don't have to do everything by yourself. You need to see that you're connected to others and no one does anything alone. We're social creatures who are wired to need support, and you're connected to others. We've talked about this before in terms of the connection. The number of true connections you have with people not only will give you longevity, but also give you a better mood. Okay. So the best way, she says, by naming old happies when you see it pop up in your life. When you feel the pressure to overwork, say to yourself, that's old happy, not me. When you judge your appearance, remind yourself, I'm comparing myself to old happy's made up standards. When you feel that you can't ask for help, tell yourself no one ever does anything alone, and it's perfectly human to need support. And that's a good part, because a lot of times you see people that have been successful, from Steve Jobs to Jeff Bezos to you name it. Yes, they might have had a good idea or 2 or 3, but they had to have other people make them successful, make the company successful. Nobody does it alone. Number 3, again, we're talking about the book, Everything You Know About Happiness is a Lie. This is the Secret to Getting the New Happy by Stephanie Harrison. And this is Improv Leadership, and this is 98.3 FM. If you've tuned in, we've been on the air. This is our 20th year coming up, by the way. 20 years on the radio in the Lake County area. Amazing. And then later this year, in September, we will have a banquet, and the public will be invited as well. So stay tuned for more details. We're still working on the details. But anyway, number 3, the real secret to happiness is counterintuitive. Okay, so you got old happy, right? And you start to unwind it or unravel it or distance it from yourself. You can discover the real secret to happiness. You want to be happy. You need to help other people be happy. Think about that. How many times have you done something for somebody else and felt really good about it, right? If you help them find a job, help them with a project, help them paint a room, whatever it is, okay? The more you can do for somebody else, the better you feel about yourself. So again, it's a proven path to happiness supported by research, of course, as this author says. Everyone wants a happy life, right? But the way to experience it is through finding ways to be of service to one another. Now, a lot of people would say, well, how is that going to make me happy? I made her happy or him happy because I did this. I helped her with this. I bought him this. I showed up for whatever. Well, it says here, helping others is scientifically proven to benefit our well-being. It connects us to one another and helps us find a greater purpose in life. It doesn't just improve your mental health, but also your physical health as well. Just like we need food and shelter, we have a profound need to go beyond ourselves and help others. That's a key thing, right? Get involved in something bigger than yourself. Get involved in something that's not just me, me, me. Don't be the narcissist that's always concerned about just yourself. What can you do for somebody else? How can you help somebody else? How can you help spread some happiness, right? And think about the simple things you can do. You come to an intersection. It's not like, well, I got here first. I made a complete stop. You go. Flash your brights and let them go first. You know what? It doesn't cost you anything. And, open the door for somebody at a grocery store or whatever. I mean, most of those are automatic, but you get the point. There's a lot of things you can do in life to make somebody else's life a little easier. Why not do it? And again, I think most people have a narrow definition. They think, okay, how I can help other people? Well, I'll volunteer. That's great. But we also have to have an expansive understanding, the author says. You need listen to your loved ones. Again, hold the door for somebody, collaborate at work, share your ideas and your unique perspective, and encourage others to be their best. Encourage others to be their best. Every day, there's countless ways to help, meaning there's countless ways and opportunities to experience happiness because you've done something for somebody else, okay? And number 4, again, we're talking about the 5 main headings of Everything You Know About Happiness is a Lie by Stephanie Harrison. Number 4, you possess unique gifts that need to be shared, especially when you get older, right? You know what you're good at. You know what your superpower is. I can't tell you what my superpower is, but the author says the best way to help others comes from sharing your unique gifts with those around you, whether your family, communities, at work, or just, the broader world. And think about what gifts you have. It can be music. It can be writing. It can be something you've done that's creative. It can just be you're a funny person. All right. It can be anything, but you have some unique gifts or gift, even if it's just one unique gift. How are you sharing it? How are you using it to make other people happy or just make it a better world? Your humanity is who you are as a person. It's your character, your best qualities, your good and loving nature. When you call a friend to listen to them, talk about a challenge, take time to play with your kids after work or smile at a stranger on the street. You're using your humanity gifts. Okay. Again, doesn't cost a lot. Doesn't at all. And engage. A lot of times I'll call a customer service company about something, whatever it may be. And I always try to work in something funny. Because you know what? Think about it. Customer service. Most people in customer service don't get a lot of, hey, everything's great. Just wanted to call. I've been on hold for 20 minutes just to tell you you're doing a good job. No, they're there to complain. And I've been there myself. I've been hot on the phone with people and been a little short with them. But use your gift to say, what you can do for somebody else. And your wisdom is what you've learned along the way. Each of us possesses a completely unique life packed with experiences that teach us important and meaningful lessons. Well, that wisdom can be passed along. That wisdom can help somebody else. That wisdom maybe can make somebody else happy. We're going to take a quick break. This is 98.3 FM, Improv Leadership. I'm Ted Schneider, every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on the greatest FM station in the world. And by the way, next week, Bob and I are hoping to do a dual show again. He'll come on my show at 6. I'll come on his show at 7, Info Explorers, and do what we used to do when we were on Something to Think About. That's next week, 6 to 7 and 7 to 8. But meanwhile, take a listen, some public service announcements and a few other things. We'll be right back.
WRLR 98.3 FM LP, Round Lake Beach, Illinois.
Don't you wish your life came with a warning app?
Stop. That dog does not want to be petted.
A heads up before something bad happens.
You should not send that text.
Uh-oh. Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can reverse prediabetes and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
My name is Corporal Bradley Joseph Seitz.
Jerry Reed.
Kate Weber.
These are real veterans facing a real challenge.
I have PTSD.
And I have PTSD.
I have PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder can happen to anyone,
I was still in a war zone in my mind.
but treatment can turn your life around.
Treatment has really saved my life.
To learn about PTSD and how treatment can help you, call your local VA medical center or visit ptsd.va.gov.
Hi, this is Stan Koenig. We invite you to listen to Yesterday Once More every Thursday from 9 to 11 and every Friday from 9 to 12 right here at WRLR. We play the best music that I know you're going to enjoy in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. We'll see you then.
Hello, listeners. Cliff Sayers here. I'm inviting you to join me noon Fridays for This Rock's Got a Roll show on 98.3 FM The Life. I play music from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today.
WRLR 98.3 FM LP, Round Lake Beach, Illinois.
Exactly. Improv Leadership. This is WRLR 98.3 FM The Life, coming live from our studio on Hawthorne in Round Lake Beach. And we're talking about the book. It's a long title. Everything You Know About Happiness is a Lie. This is the secret to getting the new happy. Stephanie Harrison. The last part, we just finished up the part where you possess unique gifts that you need to have shared. And think about your gifts. Think about what you've experienced, your wisdom. I know the high school I went to, Ridgewood, has a program where used to have a program where you could come back as a graduate, many, many years later, and talk to high school kids about your experiences. Pick a topic, and it's like a TED Talk in live in person at the high school. Never did that, but I always thought it'd be kind of cool, and wasn't sure what I would talk about. But I think the biggest thing I would talk about to younger children, younger adults, I guess, high school, you're an adult, is really, what I would tell my younger self. I had a conversation with somebody, about a year ago about this. A gentleman was in his early 30s, maybe like 29, 30, 31, in that range. And I was telling him what I would have told my younger self. And again, when you're 29 years old, 30 years old, whatever, it's like, yeah, whatever. But think about that. If you could go back and tell your younger self, some of the things that you need to focus on and what you would do. So I was trying to tell him what I would have told myself. What advice would I have given myself, 30 years ago, 35 years ago? And I think he understood, and I think he appreciated it. We'll find out. And number 5, again, this is the book by Stephanie Harrison. Everything You Know About Happiness is a Lie. Your happiness has the power to change the world. Like what? Yeah, your happiness has the power to change the world. She says we live, again, when we live by that old happy, we're not only making ourselves miserable, but we're contributing to creating a world that makes the collective unhappy. It leads to competition, judgment, disempowerment, burnout, and isolation. No one wins when old happy is dominant in our lives. But when you adapt the new happy, all that changes. Your daily actions now are contributing to making the world a better place. Think about it, right? By helping others experience happiness and devoting your incredible gifts to the problems we face, you're slowly but surely transforming the world into a place that's more and more people get happy. And it's not just an artificial happy. A lot of times people say, I'm not happy, I'm sad. Well, okay, you had a bad day, and your mirror got smashed, you lost your job, whatever it may be. There's times you're not going to be happy, all right? But they're saying here that if you do these things, you focus on the new happy versus the old happy, you tell yourself, 1, I am enough, okay? I don't have to have these grand, gestures and grand things occur in my life to make me better. And you think about what is really important in your life, which is a kind of a segue into the next book I want to talk about. But either way, that book was Everything You Know About Happiness is a Lie, The Secret to Getting the New Happy. Stephanie Harrison just came out May of last year, so it's only about less than a year old. The last one I want to talk about is by 3 authors. Life Worth Living. Now, I thought this was an older book, because I read it a couple of years ago, but it did come out March 2023, so 2 years ago. Life Worth Living, A Guide to What Matters Most by Matthew Crossman, Miroslav Volf, and Ryan McAllen Linz. So it's 3 authors, but you talk about the meaning of life. And a lot of times, don't we question, haven't you questioned that over the years, right? The older you get, you question the meaning of life. What am I here for? What am I doing on this planet? What's life about? What is the meaning of life? The reason of Monty Python, right? The book, movie called The Meaning of Life. They talk about, and there's some spiritual stuff and there's some theological stuff. I'm going to kind of skip that because it's kind of heavy. It goes into Buddhism. It goes into a bunch of things, some of the Christian mindset about different things. And I don't have time to go into it, but Life Worth Living, A Guide to What Matters Most, again, by the 3 authors. You think about the good life, it talks about what springs to mind. People think about, big boats and good, fancy restaurants and clothing and cars and champagne on ice and endless days of sun-soaked leisure. Well, somewhere along the way, they say, we've come to equate the good life with that of the moneyed high life. And it might be a problem. While there's nothing wrong with enjoying the comforts that money can buy, are these the things we should be striving for in life? And that's how it starts, okay? The book explores 4 different ways of life that have been proposed by various religious, again, some of the philosophical traditions: the life of pleasure, life of wealth, life of fame, and life of power. It also compares and contrasts them with the Christian way of life, which is, love, grace, and hope. Again, I'm not going to get too heavy into it, but I think you'll understand. But they really want you to discover your own version for a meaningful life. They give you a lot of different, again, theological ideas, as well as philosophic ideas to better understand what's important to you, and then turn them into action. Again, a life worth living. So here, they talk about the question. And part of that question is, what really is worth wanting? What should I hope for? How should we live? And that kind of thing. So again, what does it mean to be alive? What responsibilities, if anything, does this gift come with? I thought it was pretty interesting, right? What does it mean to be alive? And what responsibilities, if any, comes with this gift? A gift of life, right? I'm here on this planet. I'm alive. What responsibilities do I have, right? And I don't think a lot of people think about it that way. I know a lot of people that have passed away way too young. I can, kids from high school, my father will be gone this May, next month, 42 years. That's a long, long time. Anyway, what does it mean to be alive? What responsibilities, if any, does this gift come with? So whether or not we have responsibilities as human beings is part of what they call the question. And the question, again, is a bunch of things. What matters most? What does a flourishing life look like? And who do we answer to? But the first thing is interesting here. He's saying not what do I want, but rather what is worth wanting. That's a different thing, right? What do I want versus what is worth wanting? What would make life fulfilling and meaningful to you? So they do this deep dive in the book. And again, I don't have, a couple hours to go over it, but you think about it, who are we responsible to? And to frame it another way, you might say, are my actions subject to judgment? So they're getting kind of deep in terms of not just, there's a cause and effect. I'm here. My actions can have, implications for others. Are my actions subject to judgment? It depends on what you believe. Of course, there's laws. If you go rob a store, your actions are definitely subject to judgment. So here's the thing. The authors use the old Smokey the Bear saying, remember, only you can prevent forest fires, which has been updated to only you can prevent wildfires, if you didn't know that. But we grew up with the Smokey saying, only you can prevent forest fires. So here's the 3 primary modes of responsibility using that Smokey analogy. First, only you part. In that scenario, you're the primary agent of responsibility, okay? And then there's the forest, which you can think of as the sphere of your responsibility, your family, your community, the world around you. And then there's old Smokey himself. He's the authoritative figure, the rule giver and the judge. If you want to make meaningful choices in your life, you want to at least consider all 3 of these responsibilities: yourself, those around you, and the possibility of a higher power. again, they get, kind of spiritual, a little religious. So interesting. Think about that in this, the Smokey the Bear analogy. Again, I'm going to skip, the part about the, again, they talk about utilitarianism, Stoicism, Buddhism. It kind of gets a little too deep. I mean, like, they talk about Buddhism, like, teaches us the pleasure is more of a distraction than a goal. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess. As Buddha saw it as an example, suffering stems from craving. We crave pleasure, fame, wealth, power, and we form such attachments that even the thought of losing these things can bring suffering. So that's kind of interesting. I've read a lot of things about Zen and Buddhism. So think about that, right? We crave pleasure, fame, wealth, and power, and we form such attachments that even the thought of losing these things can bring suffering. They're not gone, but just the thought of it, right? So again, I won't go into a lot of details, but the book does talk about a lot of self-responsibility. Talks about, what does it feel like to live a good life? And they try to get past just the physical stuff. Sure, a fancy house, a big car, I eat expensive food, I have great clothing. It goes beyond that. Again, we're talking about the book called Life Worth Living, A Guide to What Matters Most. And this is Improv Leadership. This is 98.3 FM The Life for those that just joined. And we're going on our third book review, trying to save you some time, but at the same point, trying to make sure people have exposure to things you might not have realized. So this is a good part, though. They talk about our mindset about eternal life. Some people may long for eternal life, but others feel that if life lasted forever, there'd be no meaning to it. So in other words, if I was immortal, right, there'd be no meaning because death is what gives life purpose. In fact, when we say we're willing to die for something, this is a statement that testifies to life's importance. So think about that. Death is what gives life purpose. It does. You realize that the time you have, every breath, every heartbeat, every wave going through your brain is limited, right? As we talked about a few weeks ago, especially if you're in your 60s, you're in the fourth quarter of your life, right? 75% of your life is probably gone, or 70 or 80, whatever it is. You get the point. And I think the line, death is what gives life purpose, I think is great, okay? So it might be a good time to ask the authors, talk about a life worth living. Who are the people and what are the ideals that you would die for? Or to put it another way, what is worth living for? You know what you die for, but what's worth living for? So living the vision. Let's say, you come up with your own version of a good life. All right. You've identified your values. You've answered the question. You know what your good and meaningful life looks like. You know what is worth wanting. Not what I want, but what is worth wanting. So now what? Well, for some people, the next part can be the most difficult part. Put words and ideas into action. Actually live the life you envision. So you've answered the question. You've come up with some ideas. Now you have to put it in practice, right? Now you have to actually do what you say you're going to do. Do that you want to focus on. Again, we're talking about a book called Life Worth Living. Came out just 2 years ago. A Guide to What Matters Most. This is Improv Leadership. I'm Ted Schneider. We always take a little break about this time, so just a quick station ID, and we'll be right back.
WRLR 98.3 FM LP, Round Lake Beach, Illinois.
Exactly. Improv Leadership, Ted Schneider, 98.3 FM Life. We're talking about a book called Life Worth Living. Third book of the third. I didn't think I'd get to all of these, but you know what? I talk fast and I get excited. And it is what it is, as they say. Someone the other day, who was it? Oh, I know who it was. She will remain anonymous. But a friend from Facebook mentioned something about, I hope I have the energy to do fill in the blank. And I hope you do. And I hope you find that energy. Positive thing. It was about doing things around the house. Anyway, we're talking about a book called Life Worth Living. And where was I? Let's say here. We're talking about now you've done your homework and you've come up with your own vision of the good life. You've identified your values. You know what you want to do. You've answered the question. How do you put it into practice? Well, it requires a lot of times making significant changes in your life. It may prompt a lifestyle change or force you to deal with some ingrained habits that need to be getting rid of. Okay. This kind of change can be hard to say the least. So that's why this ties into 7 habits of highly effective people, right? You're going to develop new habits and squeeze out the old, right? The more new habits, good habits, not new bad habits, but new good habits that you incorporate into your life, guess what? You're going to squeeze out the bad habits. There's only so much room, right, for habits. Anyway, they just talk about that. You're going to have to, do some change, and change isn't easy, to say the least. And they go into other things about meditation and prayer also are good tools to promote long-lasting change. And it's true. Meditation, and it can be anything. You can just, take some quiet time. I know some people do yoga. Some people do Pilates. There's a lot of ways of doing meditation. Chances are you have a basic understanding of how meditation works, but they're just saying, look at a tool known as the Examine. Like examine, yeah, EXAMEN, Examine, a tool developed by Saint Ignatius of Loyola. Before he became a saint, I guess he was somewhat of a typical 16th century guy, gambled, dueled, womanized, but he was nearly killed in a military battle. He had a vision, according to the legend, that involved the Virgin Mary and was forever changed. So one of the tools he developed and maintained his newfound late in life devotion to theology was the Examine, a daily prayer that can take the form of 5 parts. First is gratitude. Reflect on your day and acknowledge the good parts. I usually do that at night. What did I accomplish? What are some of the good things I did? I do kind of run by, I couldn't, things I shouldn't have done, or I could have done better. But again, gratitude. Reflect on your day and acknowledge the good parts. 2, review. Go a bit deeper into your reflection and think about the times where you might have felt, they talk about here, God's presence, and when you might have turned away from that presence. Interesting. Again, they do take a big religious focus in this book. So again, it makes sense, right? The times where you might have felt God's presence and you might have turned away from that presence. 3rd is sorrow. Acknowledge the actions of the day for which you're sorry. Again, I told you I do that as well. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. And it eats at me for at least a day or two. I have a conscience, believe it or not. 4 is forgiveness. Ask for forgiveness and make plans to reconcile with those you may have hurt or those who have hurt you. I do that as well. A lot of times if I want to good news and bad news is how I like to say it. Like yesterday, there was an issue late at night. And the one guy jumped on and sent an email at 11:30 last night and says, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to sit with him, and I called him today and wanted to talk about some of the things that occurred last evening with work, what should have gone, what shouldn't have gone. Well, the same thing with my behavior. If I say something I shouldn't, and I do sometimes, maybe cross the line a little bit, I want to make sure I reconcile. I want to make sure, that I, repair any fences I might have damaged. Again, 4th is forgiveness. Ask for forgiveness, make plans to reconcile with those you may have hurt. Last is grace. Look ahead to tomorrow and ask for God's grace and be more mindful in recognizing God's presence. Again, the book does have a very deep spiritual aspect to it. But think about that, right? A daily prayer, gratitude, review where you might have felt, God's presence. 3rd, acknowledge actions of the day which you're sorry. Ask for forgiveness and make plans to reconcile with those you might have hurt. And look ahead to tomorrow for God's grace and be more mindful. So in summary, again, this book is called Life Worth Living, a guide to what matters most. The authors are trying to say, look, there's certain things in life that are worth doing and certain things in life that aren't worth doing. Okay. And life of comfort and wealth really isn't what you should look for, right? Rather, a meaningful life where you flourish in the pursuit of your values and ideals, perhaps making the world a place where other people can flourish as well. Think about that, right? And a lot of people don't, right? It's me, me, me. It's what I got, what I can get, what I need, what I don't have. But finding your own vision of a good life may involve piercing together the different aspects of different visions from the past and asking some tough questions about what you really need to believe in. So again, they go into, utilitarianism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and other philosophies and religions. Well, again, you can take all of that, but either way, taking action on the vision can be difficult. It might require some community support, daily meditative practice, or like anything else, it might take some time for you to work on. Change is not easy. Like we talked about in the habits book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Change isn't that easy. You need to make a choice. And this is what I'm going to focus on. This is what I think is important. This is what I want my life to look like. And as I mentioned, right, it's a finite time on this planet. If you think you're going to live forever, you might be mistaken. You might be disappointed. So why not make the most of what you've got? And as long as you've got it. So again, it's just a recap. They do use some philosophy and theology to help people discover meaning and purpose. They argue, these 3 authors, and again, I sometimes have problems with names. It was Matthew Grossman, Miroslav Volf, and Ryan McAnelia Linz. Those 3 guys. They talk about we face a crisis in the meaning in our culture, where we're often driven by external pressures, superficial pleasures, and narrow self-interests. And the other book talked about that as well, right? All the external factors that the old happy versus the new happy. You see, these books did tie in. I just didn't pick 3 random books. But a lot of times they propose we need to ask ourselves some fundamental question. What kind of life is truly worth living? And these authors say we can find the answer by engaging with major religious and philosophical traditions that have offered different visions and versions of a good life. Again, the book has 3 parts. The question of meaning of life, and explains why it's important and urgent. They also talk about, the second part, exploring 4 different ways of life that have been proposed by various religious and philosophical traditions. Again, the pleasure, wealth, fame, and power. And the third part, as we mentioned, the author's own vision of a good life, which they call a life worth living. So really, you think about it, that's the whole point of this. What is a life worth living? What is a life that's worth celebrating? What is a life worth, at the end of the day, saying, this is what I did. This is who I am. This is who I became. And this is what I've helped along the way. If you think about it, it's almost like the eulogy thing. People say, write your eulogy today, right? Write your eulogy, what you want other people to say. Well, they're not going to say it unless, of course, you live that life. It's almost like what Tom Peters talks about in The Brand You. The Brand You, BRAND. You are a certain person. You're a certain image comes to mind when someone thinks about you. And I've talked to my kids about this over the years, but what your brand is. And it's how funny, I'll tie this into work real quick. There's a guy, a responsible position. His voicemail box is full. He is not really accessible, and he runs a team of about 12 people that are important. So it was kind of funny because everybody knows who he is, right? Someone said something on a call with about 15 people. Everybody knew who we were talking about. We weren't bashing him, but the point was he has a brand. He doesn't answer his phone. His voicemail mailbox is full and not very responsive. And so the point is, you can be who you want, but you have to reinforce it. You have to continue to say, if I want to be known for this, well, then I have to do it. If I want to be known for that, and this is my legacy, this is what my eulogy will be about, it has to be purposeful. You can't just pretend that it's going to magically appear. And it has to be done on a consistent basis. So if you want to be known for something, you want a certain brand, you want to be thought of in a certain way, it's not magic. It doesn't mean you do something once and people are going to remember it, unless, of course, you created something incredible or did something amazing. In general, lead the life you want, but be purposeful in terms of what you do for that life, in terms of what you want out of the life and what you want to do for other people as well. Well, folks, we just read 3 books. Actually, a quick review. We did the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. We did Everything You Know About Happiness is a Lie by Stephanie Harrison. And we did Life Worth Living by 3 authors, which I won't mutilate their names again, but a couple of recent books and a couple of old books. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it made sense and hope it does something for you. And that's it. I'll be back again next week. As I mentioned, we are planning on doing the double show. Bob Slipke coming on my show at 6. I'm going on his show, Info Explorers, at 7, and try to do what we used to do many, many years ago. Folks, it's only Tuesday. Thanks for listening. Remember, 98.3 FM The Life, one of the best, if not the best, FN stations in the planet. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week. Take care.